Thank you for joining us tonight. I am thrilled to have this conversation. All of you I recognize that are coming to the dev team, which is so exciting. In a month, you guys, in a month. There's a couple people I don't recognize. So I am Coach Holly, and I often try to get people who are much more knowledgeable about the college recruiting process than I am to the dev team while we're actually training. It's one of our guest speakers. And I was talking to Fran and Carmen a couple weeks ago, and we just thought it might actually be more productive to do this prior to the camp, to give you guys some fodder to think about, to let your parents watch, and just have you noodle on it a little bit coming into camp. So I am not tied to any of these. There's a couple of like recruiting consultant sort of companies, and these guys are a really awesome boutique group, quite a bit smaller and maybe more personal with the select athletes that they choose to work with. But they're also awesome, and I am not tied to any of them. Okay, so when I put them in front of you, I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible. I'm not like invested in them. You guys, I just expect you to take the information, do what you need to do with it, and if you want to reach back out to them, I'm sure they're psyched. And if you don't, then you don't have to. So I will supply their contact information to you guys after this, but suffice it to say, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves a little bit, but Carmen and Fran both together have over 25 years of college coaching experience, both rode and coached at a variety of different schools, Ivy League to, not Ivy League, lots of other schools that have way more support than my experience was at an Ivy League. So, and they were in roles that actually were actively recruiting. So they're sort of in the depths of that and can give you the inside scoop on what that looks like much more than I can. So when you come to the dev team, if you're coming, I may not know the answers to some very detailed questions you may have. So now is the time to ask them, because I am not a recruiting consultant. Okay, so I am thrilled that they are here, and I'm going to let them do a presentation for you about the lay of the land. It'll be about 30 minutes. If you have questions, then I would love it if you would pop them into the chat, and I will be screening that and looking at what you guys are asking and try to aggregate that to present that to them at the end, unless something comes up that I am seeing like it should be commented right then in their presentation. Otherwise, Fran and Carmen are going to talk for about 30 minutes and then let you guys ask questions at the end. So with that, if everyone can mute themselves, I think everyone is, but keep that muted. And I am excited to have you guys here. So thanks, Carmen and Fran.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. I'm going to go ahead and start off our presentation. So again, we are called REACH, or RowersREACH. Both Fran and I do have experience in many rowing realms. I think, first I just want to thank you all for being here. We're really excited that for a lot of you, this is your first foray into college rowing. And we're really pleased to be that voice, that person that might be able to help you through this process. I know Holly has already given you a lot of really great information. And so tonight's really going to be more of, if you will, like broad strokes about, in general, college placement and the recruiting process. A brief intro that Holly gave about us. We are former coaches from the Ivy League, the Patriot League. We've either rowed or coached in the Big Ten, the Big East. And so what we want to do is impart some of our expertise and our experiences on you, and then be able to have you ask us questions, and then give you some, as Holly said, some fodder, some things to think about as you start to navigate your own process. Some of the basic takeaways we really want you to get from tonight is, one, this process looks very different for each individual, and that no two people are alike. Because some of you are entering this process a little earlier, a little later in the game, that's okay. And then the next takeaway that's really important for us is that you understand that you can row in college, whether you're considered a recruit, whether you're on scholarship, whether you're a walk-on. It is doable by anyone who chooses to do it. And a lot of time it's really just about finding that right fit. And that's where we consider ourselves experts. And that's what we want to extend to you. And finally, kind of what we do and what we embody is truly helping families become informed and making and enabling you to make the best decision for you. And that's really all, that's what we have to tell you tonight, is about kind of how to do that. And so from here, I'm going to hand it over to Fran. She's going to do a lot of the talking. And then, as Holly said, we're going to have a question and answer session at the end. And we really hope you'll take advantage of that, because if we haven't answered something, it's probably because it's more on a micro scale, and we're happy to get to that in a Q&A or on one-on-one. All right, Fran, if you want to tell a little bit about you, that'd be fantastic. I actually didn't tell, I did say what leagues we coached in, but briefly, I started as a walk-on myself at Rutgers. I then went on to coach in Philly for a private school, small independent high school. I then went to coach at Lehigh University, where I won the Dad Bale. I went on to coach at Cornell University, where I medaled at the Eastern Sprints. Then I went on to scholarship programs at Indiana University, where I had the privilege of earning medals at the Big Tens. And then I went again to high school coaching, and now I'm here consulting here for you. Fran?
Okay, so let's see, my name's Fran Berlin, and I got my start rowing in Syracuse in high school, so Syracuse, New York. And I wound up going to Cornell University, where I walked onto the rowing team there. So I was an experienced walk-on. I had a fantastic experience there. I wound up rowing in the varsity 8. I went to NCAAs, which was fantastic. I was captain of the team, and I loved it so much that I decided to stick around and coach for a few years at Cornell after I graduated, which is where I met Carmen. I followed Carmen from Cornell to Indiana, and coached there for a few years, same as Carmen. We won a couple medals at the Big Tens for the first time ever in IU history, which was fantastic. And from there, I went to University of Colorado and became the head coach there. And they compete at the ACRA level. So I won actually every moment of pride. Every boat I coached there won a medal at ACRA. So that was really fun, really exciting. And since then, I've moved all around the country, all around the world with my family. And I'm now currently located in Tacoma, Washington, which is fantastic. So any West Coasters, I'm loving it out here, and it's early in the day. We still have the sunshine. So I'm going to get right into it, though. I don't want to talk too much more about us. And where we want to start is letting you know that the NCAA has very specific definitions for what constitutes a recruit and what constitutes a prospective student athlete. Holly gives a great document to the kids that come through her camp that describes a little bit more about this, but know that for our purposes for tonight, a recruit is basically just someone who's pursuing a rowing opportunity in college. And the big question is then, should your child or should you be a recruited student athlete, and why? Our answer is absolutely yes, you should, because through the lens of rowing, you'll learn more about a school and about the people that attend it and work there. You'll learn more about the academic programs and the feel of the community, all the stuff that you need to help establish a good fit. You'll learn more through rowing than you would as a general population applicant. Really, though, we encourage everyone to seriously consider rowing in college in some capacity, because for many students, they'll find a home and a family and a familiarity on campus in the rituals of the boathouse. So you're going to find a sense of belonging, a support structure, mentors. This is really important when you're getting into the college structure. For others, they're going to be scholarship material, or rowing's going to set them apart in admissions. But what it comes down to is that the reality is life is often about working smarter and not harder. It's often about building networks. It's often more important who you know rather than what you know. And you'll carry the networks that you build through rowing into your post-collegiate life. For everyone that's a college applicant, exploring rowing is going to help you gain valuable insight about a college and the student community there, so you can compare schools and determine your fit. And to leave you, we really do feel strongly that there is a place for everyone in the collegiate rowing world. We're going to get into that a little bit more as we go on through. So this slide illustrates the recruiting process. We say old versus new. The new is becoming less and less new. But even as recently as 10 years ago, the process was really strongly weighted towards the 10th and 11th grades. Today, we want to start working with kids as early as even freshman year, because by spreading this process out over 4 years, it's going to be actually enjoyable. It can be enjoyable. It's going to be more successful. It's going to be less stressful. And it's going to give you time to plan and think and ultimately make the best decisions with a wide range of information gathered. It can open doors to opportunities that might have been closed by junior and senior year. And really at the end of this process, you want to build confidence that you're able to make an informed decision versus a decision just being made for you. So the bottom line is, it's okay to start planning now for rowing to help you later. Doesn't mean that you have to row in college, but you can use the process to help you find the right college fit. All that said, it is never too late to start. You can jump into the process at any point. You can be a walk-on to any team. I did that for sure. But if you're getting into the process as a junior or senior, that likely means you're going to need to maximize your resources to achieve the best outcome for you. One of the things we get asked a ton is to interpret coach communication. So for our students, we help them determine or help them interpret what the coach is actually saying to them when they're having a phone conversation, an email conversation, etc. Because not that many people have spent a significant amount of time as a college recruiter. It's important to understand the coach's perspective, and we're going to discuss a little bit more about this as we go through. But it's important to know that the reality is that for these coaches, recruiting is often time-consuming, challenging, and soul-crushing. They're receiving often up to 200 emails per day, per week. They have limited resources that they're able to use to recruit. And they went into coaching because they love developing athletes in the sport of rowing, but not always the administration part. And a little known fact is that college coaching is a really administratively heavy job. College rowing coaches are arranging travel, they're getting hotel contracts, they are securing race venues, they're scheduling races, they have NCAA rules and compliance meetings, they have departmental meetings, there's boat, trailer, and facility maintenance, there's rigging and usually re-rigging multiple times, there's buoy line, course installation, hosting races, and managing staff. In addition, coaches have personal lives. They've got families and hobbies. Plus, they've got current athletes, often 70 to 80 athletes on a team. So think all their academics, all their injuries, all the ins and outs that go with that. They have past athletes that they're writing letters of recommendation for, or keeping in touch with for fundraising purposes. And they have often personal health and wellness goals as well as academic goals. And all of this is above and beyond their actual training plan that they're developing and executing, their team workouts, attending races, the actual, thing that you think of when you think college coaching. And the reality is that recruiting is going to consist of a long paper trail of contacts, of progress, of interest, of compliance, and then budgeting, both on the scholarship side and on the recruiting dollars. Coaches are constantly texting, calling, and prospecting athletes even as early as 8th grade, plus any transfer students or 5th years. So our students have found that we can really help them stand out from all that noise because coaches are just busy. They have a lot going on that can be hard to appreciate if you've never been in their shoes. We get asked all the time, what does a coach want in an athlete? And just as a side note, this is my son. He's 7 and he is 4 foot tall on a good day. He's 50 pounds soaking wet after a big meal, but he doesn't care. He's on that erg playing the fish game. He loves the fish game. And in general, what a coach is looking for is someone who's going to work hard, not bring any drama, someone who's going to know their role and work every day for 4 years to be the best that they can be. So being big and fast helps for sure, but it's not the be all end all for the majority of coaches. What's really going to make a coach's day is someone who's taken an organized and accountable approach to the college process. They really are going to want you to know your facts. So FACTS is an acronym that Carmen and I developed to describe all the components you'll need to know about and flesh out for yourself and as a family as you work through the college search process. So FACT stands for, the F is financials, what your family can contribute and what you will need from a college or rowing program. The A is academics. This is your areas of interest, any possible majors, your future career track, basically the why you're going to college in the first place. The C is your checklist, your college checklist. Those are things like the size, location, weather, whether it's city or rural, all the things that are important to you, what type of environment or supports you envision you need to be successful and happy. Then T is the tenor, that's the feel. So the feel of the academic and athletic departments, the feel of the school, the mission of the school, what of those things resonate with you and what values are important to you. S, that's the sweet spot. So the rowing sweet spot. What kind of team is going to be right for you? Do you want to be a contributor or a leader? Will you develop there? Is it important that you compete for an NCAA championship? Or is it more important that you develop mastery of the sport? The coach needs to know that you have fully developed your facts so that you can in turn explore how your facts fit with their college and rowing program. Additionally, the other things coaches are looking for are someone who is prepared with their SATs and any retakes. Their essays are done well ahead of time. They're well thought out and well edited to accurately reflect your character, grades that reflect a solid student, and any projects, leadership positions, jobs, events, clubs, things that reflect the time and thought you've put into your future, as well as into developing your interests. Lastly, they want to know that you've done all this stuff early enough to be able to apply early decision if that's the best option for you. In light of all the coaching responsibilities that we mentioned on the previous slide, you can see the advantage of presenting yourself as someone who's done this legwork, because it's going to show that you'll be easily plugged into the fabric of their team without any real effort on the coach's part. We help our students maximize their recruitability because, let's be honest, doing and organizing all of this stuff is a lot when you're a high school student or a parent who has a job other than preparing your high school student for college. The thing to remember, though, is at the end of the day, the end goal for both you and the coach is to know that you have fully researched your fit for that school and that program so that the coach knows they're recruiting a 4-year successful, happy contributor, and so that you, the parent, know that your child is going to be landing someplace they can thrive and get the most out of their college experience. And I think this is worth repeating. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it to do that work so that your child can land someplace where they will thrive. All right, here are the nitty-gritty stats. This is the $1 million question. These are the realities of top threshold recruitment. We've split things up into several tiers, though. You can see there's from the NCAA and IRA top 15 to 20 programs on through. Know that there are multiple levels that you might shoot for, but also know that you have the opportunity to walk onto any team. Very few coaches are going to just turn you away. And that's something that you'll explore early in your search process so that you know where to focus your efforts. Realizing that if coach does say something like, nope, that's not going to happen, that tells you something about the makeup of their team and about them as a coach. And that's important information for you to know. What we encourage our students to do is look for where they will fit in well and be successful in all aspects of their college education, taking these ERG parameters into account as just one part of a larger conversation, but knowing that this is a conversation that you'll need to have and will have with prospective programs. On the coxswain side of things, coxswains are much more nebulous. These are the top 4 considerations for coaches, but for coxswains, it's really important to build relationships with coaches and teams over time, both their high school coaches and their high school team, and the team that they are prospectively looking to join. That's something we definitely help coxswains do, figure out how to present themselves as a compelling addition to a team. So recruitment from our point of view is essentially an organized approach to a long-running, complex process. You're going to use information that you've gathered through strategic research in order to maximize your placement opportunities. Holly has some good generalized information. Again, I said that she provides to her camp through her camp materials, which cover a lot of this. But what we do with our students is go over the details, knowing that each approach is going to be unique to each individual's needs and goals. And we don't believe that there's a one size fits all to this approach. College placement basically consists of finding your interests, your specific needs and goals, and then fleshing it out via scheduled check-ins, academic and athletic milestones, established timelines, feedback on creating a holistic application, plan projects, and the like. That is where the facts come in again. Your financials, your academics, your checklist, your tenor, and your sweet spot. This is a broad sample timeline, taking into account all the considerations built into the process of finding and achieving college placement. One of the most helpful things that we do for our students is to build a personalized timeline for each person based on where they are and what their specific needs and goals are. The details, again, are going to depend on your goals academically as well as athletically and just where you are on the spectrum of preparation. But these are some of the milestones that you'll need to work through to be successful in finding a good fit for your student. Know though, if you are a junior or a sophomore at this point, don't worry, you can do all of these things. Your timeline will just be condensed and you'll need to be proactive in your approach. So Inside Higher Education found that 62% of students who applied early decision were accepted versus a 51% acceptance rate for the total general population. This is general across the board. Know that for the Ivy League, for example, their acceptance rates for early decision are quite a bit higher than their regular decision rates, which are very low. We cite this statistic not to say that you have to apply early decision if that's not the best option for you. And if it's not the best option for you, you should not apply early decision. But you want to be in a position where you can apply early if you want to. And at the very least, know that you've been able to put together a holistic application, one that accurately reflects all the great things about you. To that end, specific milestones and holding your student accountable to those milestones and supporting and preparing them throughout the process is key. That can open doors to opportunities and options that might not have been available or fully explored because you just didn't know or just didn't have time. Basically, this process is analogous to preparing yourself to race for the national team if that's what you choose to do. You can't prepare on tryout day. You need to have a well thought out, defined process that includes standards and metrics, coaches, equipments, basically all the resources that you can marshal to if you're going to achieve that goal. We're going to talk a little bit about the available athletic opportunities, so basically the divisions. And the biggest differences are in the resources that are available and provided by the institution. Things like gear, facilities, internal administrative support, coaches and staff, your athletics budget, access to trainers, training tables and tutors, priority registration, as well as the time that you're expected to spend training. The NCAA dictates the training commitment for women's rowing at the Division I, Division II, and Division III level. They dictate the scholarship options, permissible benefits, and they also protect the rights of the student. Women's lightweight, men, and club rowing are not NCAA sanctioned, but they have their own governing bodies. But know that often, especially women's lightweight and men's rowing are often NCAA compliant. So they will follow the same NCAA compliance and recruiting rules. We really feel that it's really important for students to know that there are a lot of options available to them through rowing. And ideally, you'd explore each option to find where you're going to be most successful and happiest, because there really is a home for everyone. In general, Division I is going to have the most institutional support compared to D3 or club, but know that there's a huge range amongst all these categories. Some Division I programs are funded more like D3 programs, and some club programs have huge alumni fundraising bases and support from the university. So it really can be hard to tell the difference from the outside. It's going to vary drastically among schools. And this is why it's really important to thoroughly research a variety of options and ask a lot of questions. We encourage our students to look beyond some of the obvious choices by including schools on their list that are going to help them gauge for themselves which athletic tier is actually going to suit their needs, their goals, and their wants. So we like to tell a little story here. We were speaking with a student who was not fast on the erg, but she had an older sister who was very fast and was recruited to and earned a full scholarship at a top tier Division I program. That same program offered the younger daughter, who was not that fast, a partial scholarship to come row for that program. And what she ultimately elected to do was go to a smaller Division II school because it was a far better fit for her athletically, and she would have been lost in the weeds at that bigger D1 school. So it was so exciting for us that she went where she would be able to develop and contribute to a team, and she got more financial aid as well. But it was such a mature decision and such a smart decision for her to turn away from that name brand towards someplace that was actually going to allow her to develop athletically, academically, and personally. And that's really what we're hoping for with our students, with the students that we work for, that they're going to find some place that will allow them to develop all areas of them. Scholarships. In the event your student is in consideration for or has set a goal to earn a scholarship, that's kind of a whole separate conversation. But for students that are looking for scholarship dollars, we like to guide them towards opportunities that still fit them and then would navigate the process with them. But we know that scholarships aren't always either on the table and aren't always the end goal for many of our students. And that often gaining admission to your choice school, that is the scholarship, using rowing as an additional tool in your arsenal to get there. We definitely support, I think, as we've said, the full exploration of all opportunities, with scholarships just being part of the total conversation your family's having with college programs. All right, so we know that this is geared towards parents, and I think what we didn't maybe mention was that Carmen and I are parents ourselves. Our kids are not yet in the college process yet, where our kids are a little bit younger, but we know that what parents are likely wondering at this point is, what is our role and what can we do to help our kids get this right? So when we work with our students, we go over these things, these top 5 college placement tools. We go over these with them to show themselves in the best light possible. We explore why these 5 things are important, how to do them, and then we'll refine as needed. We're showing them to you, the parents, because we know that as the parent and mentor, your most valuable contribution is to hold the ball for your student. You're there to help your student develop, understand, and properly market these 5 points, basically to help and encourage them to develop their interests and strengths, and then learn how to tell the coaches and admissions about them in a constructive way. You're there to encourage your students to use all of their resources, both internal and external, wisely, and to help them find and develop those resources if necessary. You're there to support your student in exploring schools, maybe outside the mainstream, to really help them determine a good fit and their eventual success, because you as a parent know that good education and strong foundations in academic, athletic, emotional, and personal success are really important. And it's more than just the academics. It's more than just the athletics. And all of those things can be found in a variety of places, not just the well-known name brands. But I think maybe most importantly, as a parent, you're there to be a calm, steadfast presence in your student's life, because they're going to be wading through a lot of feedback and a lot of noise from their peers, from colleges, from their high school, from their current teams, and all of it's amplified on social media. It can be stressful and overwhelming. And we're here basically to alleviate areas of stress that can arise, to allow families more time to enjoy each other, because we're handling the nitty-gritty, that we're holding everyone accountable to all of those deadlines and calendars and timelines and all the needed work, so that families can just enjoy each other before their student heads off to college. Lastly, we want to leave you with a few resources of value that you can use for information and guidance. If you're not familiar with Row2K, you probably will be and should get there. There's lots of information on Row 2K from the rowing side of things. The NCAA Eligibility Center has a lot of valuable information as well. A lot of it's in kind of weird, cryptic legalese, but if you can wade through all that, there's some good information there. Instagram is a really great way to get to know kind of the feel and the tenor of rowing programs and college campuses. So we strongly urge our students to use their Instagram for that purpose. For coxswains, there's Ninth Seat, the Mary Whipple Coxswain Camp. And then for everyone, if you'd like to be in a database, just use one of the free ones. Be Recruited is one of the bigger ones. And that's a great place to start. But know that probably the best way to work on getting recruited and find the information that you're looking for is to just start a conversation with college coaches. And that is where we're going to leave you guys. If there are questions, I know Holly was picking them out of the chat, but if anything else has cropped up, and I hope so, because I know that this was just a broad overview, and hopefully there are some more pointed, detailed questions that we can answer for everybody.
We have some questions. So Fran, don't take go back to the timeline slide. The angled line was saying, and one athlete asked, and this is a really great question. You know, I thought we weren't supposed to talk to them until after the summer after our sophomore year. So can you talk about what types of communication they can do and how that changes as they age?
Sure. Carmen, do you want to jump in? Because my voice is getting a little bit rusty, but basically, you cannot, per NCAA regulations, well, actually, a college coach cannot, per NCAA regulations, call or email you until after a certain point between your sophomore and junior year. But before then, you're going to be doing a lot of research on those programs. You can always pay the campus a visit. You can certainly reach out to the coach and let them know, hey, this is me and this is who I am and I'm interested in your program because of these things. They can send you some kind of basic information, but really what you're doing is just starting to get the ball rolling on the research side of things. You're starting to get the ball rolling on letting coaches and programs know that you're interested in them and kind of getting your name in their heads. So Carmen, what else, anything else you want to add to that? You're muted though.
Wait, I have a question while she's muted, Fran. So you're saying that they could write, they can still contact them, but the coach can't respond, is what you're saying.
Right. So basically,
yeah, absolutely. And so I think the nuances to that is twofold. One, you're going to hear about volleyball players committing in the 5th grade. You're going to hear about soccer players committing in the 8th grade. You're going to hear about baseball kids already supposedly have a scholarship. That is verbal communication that has gone through their club, their high school, their third-party recruiter, their college placement service. So that does happen out there. In rowing, it's usually not as early. So yes, you are encouraged when you are actively seeking a top tier recruitment spot, you are encouraged to fill out the questionnaire and to initiate contact through email as well as make campus visits, because it's showing that coach, it's laying groundwork for a foundation and a relationship. So absolutely. Again, it will be one-sided up until the June 5th between the sophomore and junior year. But until then, yeah, that's all up to you to weave the story of who you are to them and present yourself as the person that has a vested interest in becoming somebody who knows a lot about what they want.
Okay,
that's a great question. Thanks.
Yeah. So if someone else have if that did not answer your question, Maeva, go ahead and write me again if you have some more questions. Now, the next several questions would like you to go back to the nitty-gritty slide. Surprise, surprise. And we have a couple. So I think if you can give a little explanation of what 1 through 4 is, and maybe give a couple examples of what those are, and that will stay in this conversation as we've discussed before, because I try to do the same thing. And then there's some other questions, but let's just start. That's
so let's just hit that. So number 1 would be your fastest team in the country. That's a pretty easy one. The top tier school, the school that's winning the NCAA every year, that's UW right now for the women's side. It tends to be UW, Cal, Stanford for the men's
UW,
side.
Cal for the men's side too.
So, that's number one. Your 2s, 3s, and 4s are going to be maybe potentially your less fast programs as it stands in national rankings. And that, again, that doesn't mean that that's your standard. That's not your number one pick. What if UW doesn't have, the study of the inner wood particle of something? That's fine. That's not your number one. But this is when you're looking to be, a top tier recruit, so to speak. These are those numbers. Does that help explain that, the 1 through 4 people?
I think, yeah, like basically, I think what people are looking for is like, yeah, tier 1, that's going to be like your top 15 to 20 at NCAAs and IRAs. Tier 2, that's going to be your maybe after that Division 1 schools into Division 2 if you're in contention for a scholarship. Division 3 schools, that's more like your tier 3 and maybe even into tier 4. But I think what we want to also reiterate here is that there is a lot of fluidity here. There is a lot of, just because you don't have a score that's in that range and a school's in that, that tier, for example, it doesn't mean that you can't start that conversation with a coach. It doesn't mean that you can't be on their team. It doesn't even mean that you might not be recruited on their team, because coaches are looking for other things than just ERG scores. They're looking for a person who's going to contribute to the fabric of their team, someone who's going to contribute to the college and team community, so that, again, this is just a piece. So if you're looking for like the if you want to go to University of Washington, for example, and you are a woman and you want to be recruited to the University of Washington, then yeah, your ERG score is going to need to be down there for sure. But at the same time, this is a small piece of that. And what we really encourage people to do is assess where they are, set some goals, realistic goals, work towards those goals, see where you are and see what schools kind of fall in that category, but also take into consideration everything else, because you're not just going to college to row. You're going to college for your entire life, basically. So what happens if you get injured? Make sure that you didn't just go to college to row. You went to college to go to college, right? So, this is one piece of the recruiting, the whole recruiting thing. And it's really the easiest thing. Coaches are always going to ask you, what's your ERG score? What's your most recent ERG score and when it is? And you should volunteer that information for sure too. But again, that's just a piece. And so much of recruiting is letting the coach know who you are as a person, so that they can understand how you fit into their into the fabric of their team, basically. And if you're, getting a coach that says like, hey, no thanks, we don't really want that, remember that it's not a not a knock on you personally, but that coach is looking out for their entire team, all 60 to 80 people that are rowing for them. They're trying to find, that person that's going to fit, that puzzle piece that's going to fit into their team. And if you're not the piece for that specific puzzle, that's okay. You're a piece for a different puzzle. You just have to find what puzzle you go to. Does that help answer the question at all?
Yeah, I just wanted to, go ahead, Carmen.
Someone asked about height and how that plays into it too.
Wait, hold on. I'm the question moderator. Hold on a second. I just wanted to put on there, Fran, so you guys, we'll talk about this at the camp, but don't assume the schools that are at NCAAs are the top 20 speeds in the country. There are
this year.
Yeah, well, there are crews. It's because there are winners of leagues where the whole league isn't nearly as fast.
Yeah.
And so, like, even if someone's not at NCAAs,
it doesn't mean that they're not fast.
It's fluid, right? It's not just like you look at who's in NCAAs. It matters which league you're looking at there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There are D3 programs that will beat a lot of D1 programs.
For sure.
And so anyway, there are several questions about the height. Like, people want to understand, are they the height versus 2K? Like, what's the most important? There's questions about when are you supposed to hit this 2K in your career? And there's questions about, is this lightweight weight? Like, do you see lightweight coaches recruiting at that weight, 135, or do they have to be under that?
So I think the lightweight piece is probably the easiest. What lightweight coaches are looking for is that you're actually lightweight sized, right? So it doesn't help them at all if they recruit someone who's naturally 145 pounds, because that person can't train healthily. They can't go as fast, and they won't be a good contributor. So I think that the easy answer is, if you are lightweight sized, or close to lightweight sized, that's certainly a conversation that you should have with teams. But if you're like a guy and you're 180 pounds and you're being recruited to lightweight programs, that's really concerning to me, just because I don't think that that's good for you, from a health standpoint, and that coach probably should not be recruiting you, is my guess. And to me, that says something about that coach is maybe not so worried about your overall health and well-being, and maybe just more worried about how fast they're going. So that might not be a good fit. So that's my personal take on the lightweight side of things. Carmen, do you have anything to add to that, and maybe start addressing some of the other things that I've kind of forgotten now?
I think Holly was asking about the height component. So you addressed lightweight really well. I think you guys, when we talked about the coach's perspective, you really, unfortunately, have to take ego out of this and look at it from a coaching standpoint. They're trying to make their boat go the fastest with the longest strokes out there. So the people who have the highest SATs, the best GPAs, the fastest ergs, and the tallest physique, yeah, they're going to get 99% of those looks. But that 1%, that could be you for sure. And is it worth pursuing? That's something that you're going to have to evaluate with your family and you and your coach and potentially, your college placement specialist. Because is it somewhere, and that's when Fran's asking, do you want to be a contributor to a team? Do you want to be the leader on the team? Do you want to develop on that team? That's going to try to, you're going to figure out, do you want to be the Mighty Mouse? Fran, Holly, and I were all 5'6". We all made the varsity 8. Would we make the varsity 8 today? I don't know. I can't answer that. Can I tell you that you're not going to make a boat? Absolutely not. Is a coach going to tell you you're not going to make that boat? They're not going to tell you you're not going to make it. You're going to make that decision ultimately. But are they going to recruit you based on that? Well, they don't know. That decision hasn't been made yet. So the timeframes and when you need to hit these erg scores. I think always the sooner the better, of course, because that coach then wants to know that you can sustain it, that it wasn't, it wasn't just something that you only do sophomore year, and they want to keep seeing you continue to trend upward. But the reality is coaches do look at how long you've been racing, how long you've been rowing. If you come from a program that ergs a lot, if you've been in an international scene or like a crash bees or a high pressure circumstance, they do look to see, all right, I can tell that kid's probably going to go a little faster. I wouldn't bank on it. I want you to think of it again from the coach's perspective, like an SAT. Do those colleges look at it and say, oh, she's got a really good GPA. She's probably going to get really good SAT score. They're not probably going to prospect on you. And that's okay. There's so many schools out there. The schools that have a lot of candidates, that might not be the place for you. That's okay. There's a lot of great places out there. Fran, you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I think that was pretty good. I think, yeah, the other thing, the takeaway, again, to just keep harping on with this slide, is that there is fluidity. So again, I was 5'6", rode in the varsity 8 at NCAAs, and so a coach isn't going to turn away someone who's, let's say, in tier 2 going 707 at 5'9", right? Like, so you're a little bit shorter than we say in that tier. Like, these are just generalizations. If you're not there, it's okay. Still contact college coaches, still work with coaches, still talk to coaches, because yeah, there's a lot of things that coaches want from you above and beyond just your erg score and your height and weight. So know that you are far more than your erg score. You're more than your height. You're more than your size. And coaches know that as well.
So if I can just add a little bit for context to you guys, from the 2019 dev team, I should have pulled up, I could pull up the ergs in a minute to look at it, but there are athletes, I had athletes that were in the 720s at that, going to like Tennessee, I had a kid at Washington in the low, it just broke 720, but she was real nasty mentally, right? So you got to make up for it if you're not going to be a huge erg at a school like that. So I have examples to give you guys of where they're going, but this is a good idea that, like, you know, it is important. Anyone who says that the erg score doesn't matter totally that's just not true. They're going to ask you those numbers. But you know, there's kids going to NCAAs in a couple weeks that were with me just a couple years ago, and they weren't sub 710 or even sub 720. Some of them when they were rowing with me. So
right, but they may have developed there, and they maybe weren't
totally.
the top prospect. And they maybe didn't get a scholarship, and you know that's something that you are going to have to put your ego in that little bit of a box and decide what's important to me here. Is it the perception, or is it my experience and what I want?
And yeah, I think what Carmen's saying there is definitely, if you just want to get recruited and you just want to have a scholarship, you know, we're encouraging you to think about college and college placement as much, 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 much more than that. So kind of turning away from all the social media and all the like, oh, I'm getting recruited here and I'm getting recruited there, and really look for where you're going to be successful and happy for 4 years, whether you're rowing or not. Because that's really the end goal. You're looking for someplace that you're going to spend 4 years immersed in that community, and you want to like it. You want to feel at home there. You want to feel supported there. So the erging piece and the rowing piece is part of that conversation for sure, but it's a big conversation that you should be having. Have we hammered this one home yet?
No, that was great, Fran. A couple other questions for you guys about what coxswains can put together. Like, what materials are they able to demonstrate their recruitability since they don't have an erg score?
Yeah.
Right. So I think, you know, that's really important is communication. It's really easy as a coach to ignore the coxswain emails and then just grab one at the very end. So if you have done your job, like the facts that Fran talked about, the FACTS, and you have a proven interest in that school and you've made it easy to be recruited, that's much easier for them to pick you up. Every year, you as a coach, you want as many coxswains as you can get, but you're not going to work that hard to get them because, frankly, your athletic administrative office is probably not going to be crazy about it if you have 8 coxswains and no rowers, right? So again, thinking of it from the coaching perspective, they've got to justify their decisions on who they're helping in admissions or who they're supporting, you know, financially, et cetera. So the things you can do to set yourself apart is, go visit the campus and tell the coach specifically, hey, I had this fantastic, you know, experience at this department. I loved nothing more than to get a kid that had proven themselves. I was like, all right, great. This kid is a solid. They love the school. They want to be here. They've got good grades. Their parents can afford it. Fantastic. Sign them in, you know, bring them on an official or an unofficial, you know, kind of let them see the team, let us get to know them. And then, that's who we want. That is more a bigger component of it. Again, going back to that coxswain slide, Fran, it's number 8. They want to make sure that you are the right size. You have to be the right size.
That's the same thing as lightweights, right? It's the same thing as lightweights. Like, there's no point in recruiting a coxswain who's naturally 150 pounds because you're just not coxswain sized and it's not healthy for you. So yeah, that's a big one.
And then number 2, they just want to make sure that you know how to be safe, right? That you know how to, and this isn't something that you can necessarily show them, but this is something you can talk about when you weave it into an email. You know, you can say, I've done this coxswain training, or I've spoken to my coach about these various things, and really explain to them and weave a story about you and your interests and the things, the research you've done, the podcasts you've listened to, the coaching clinics that you've been to. All those things are going to help explain to them that you know how to be a safe coxswain, that you do acknowledge your hand every time, or that you acknowledge the coach, that you do keep a straight point. That straight point usually is about safety. It's about not hitting another. I can run a parallel line. You're not knocking into another crew. Those are crucial to a coach. And how do you do that? By telling them, I know how to steer a straight line. I was taught by an ex-coach. I've done these things to train and educate myself. Even I attended Holly's camp, and Holly can say, I did not hit the dock once. That's helpful.
That is huge, actually, not hitting the dock.
Does that help, Miss? Whoever the coxswain was? Ask away more if we're not nailing it, guys.
Yeah, so I think this is, we've hit we just have a few more minutes here. So if anyone else has questions, feel free to pop it in. I just want to make sure I'm right on this. 110 for women's teams still, and 130 for men's teams for coxswains, correct?
125 for men.
Okay.
And
And then,
And again, I think for coxswains, like, you know, if I had a coxswain that was 115 pounds, like, oh, and she was a great fit for the school and all the other stuff, like, okay, you know, I'm bringing her in, like, the weight isn't the be all end all, kind of like the erg score isn't the be all end all. It's a lot of this other stuff for coxswains as well. And a lot of it's just, yeah, what you can put in the FaceTime or the email and phone conversation time you can put in with a coach to let them know how serious you are as a candidate for their school and how well you fit in.
yeah, I mean, Fran in college had a pretty robust, I would say, coxswain that went through the NCAAs, and she made that boat over a kid that was smaller than her. But are they going to actively seek that athlete out as a recruit? Maybe not. Do you get a chance to prove yourself as you've walked onto the team? Probably. If you're good, that career will rise to the top. So it doesn't matter if you're, a quote unquote recruited person. It's finding that right place where you know you can make the difference and you want to be there.
Were there other questions, Holly?
No.
someone's asking, how many times do you fill out a college questionnaire for the same school?
So it's a good question, because you would think, oh, I've got these updates. Email them updates. So you're going to fill out that questionnaire once. You're going to keep a nice Excel spreadsheet, or you're going to work with us. We have a 5-tab document where we help you track all that. And then you're going to either you start out every 3 months, every month, every 2 weeks, every 1 week, as you start to culminate and kind of rise your pressure on the coaching staff. And you educate them and you let them know what you're doing and what you're up to. And you tell them, hey, I went to this race, or unfortunately that race was canceled. You are basically telling the school about you. You don't care what they're telling you about them up until the really go time. That might be a signal to you that they're not interested in you, but if you're interested in them and you don't care, that's fine too. That's okay. If that's the right school for you that has entomology, fantastic. That coach will take you.
Can you guys talk a little bit? This happens to me every year where I get a lot of phone calls, and this is not my area of expertise, about the radio silence. Like, an athlete's been communicating with a coach, and then they're like, and I'm trying to say, well, have they said that they're going to support you? And then there's like radio silence.
Right. So this is the puzzle piece game that Fran's talking about, right? So that coach may have actually filled that puzzle piece, and they are done. They are maxed. It's not right, but it's very imaginable. I want you guys again to go back to what Fran said, 200 emails a day. These people aren't doing this because it's personal. It's not that they dislike you. It's that maybe they're bad at their job. It's very possible. Or they just don't like that part of their job that much. It is not personal. It is professional. And sometimes you do have to read that radio silence and say, all right, I'm going to move and put my eggs in a different basket. We talk a lot about having a plan B. That's why you have a quote unquote safety school, a quote unquote target school, and a quote unquote reach school, because you also might find, actually, that school is really bad. I don't like it. We had kids drop out. I had an amazing recruiting class, 13 kids. It was so big, Indiana's first ever. It would have been 17. Many of those kids called me last minute and were like, yeah, actually, just kidding. You weren't our first choice. You were our 5th choice. I was crushed. I put a lot of time and energy into it. But then I called my next tier of kids. This is a business for these people. This is a business about speed. And that's why we really encourage you to look at facts, that financial, the ACTS, those are really going to be helpful. And then you'll be able to read, is this the place for me? Not how much do they like me? Do I want them? Not do they want me?
I think the other piece of that is it kind of depends on how long the radio silence is for. I mean, if they don't get back to you within like a week or two, okay, like they're really busy, they're doing a lot of things. It may be racing season, they may have other, balls in the air. So give coaches some time, but if you've been in communication with someone, then all of a sudden they drop off the face of the earth for a couple months, again, that's going to tell you something about where they're coming from. And if you still really want that team and really want that program, again, know that you can still apply to the school, you can still walk on, but again,
Yeah.
it's telling you something about them. And what I will share is, for me, we move all the time and I have to select schools for my children, and schools that don't email me back when I contact them to check on the, registration and everything like that, that's kind of out for me, because for me, I want a school that's going to be responsive and someone that's going to get right back to me. But again,
Not
that's
me.
not every coach, right?
That's
And
not
that's
me.
not every person. That's what's
That's
important
not
to
my
me.
personality. Not my personality at all. The first time
No,
someone
for sure not.
silences me, that's 3 more emails I feel like sending them. And I will do that until I hear them
That is
say
true.
mercy. And that is a personality thing. There's
But
just
it's
different ways.
important. It's important to know your personality and what's important to you. And I think that's why I'm telling you that, to illustrate it. What is important to you, you have to decide what values are important to you. And to me, that says that, gosh, if that person's taking a long time to get back to me, then I'm not that important to them. And I don't like that. For Carmen, she's saying, hey, that person's not getting right back to me. Oh, well, I'll keep contacting them. When I wake up every morning, you know who I have 17 text messages from when I've been asleep? Carmen, right? So, it's just personality, and, it's what's important to you. And, so you can read a lot into it or not a lot. I think, yeah. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. So you guys, there's other things that we can talk about at camp too. And, feel free. Why don't you guys, Carmen and Fran, however you want to be contacted, put it in the chat right here for them, just so they can grab your email, and I'll put that with the link too. Does anyone have any last minute questions in just the last minute?
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Yeah.
We really enjoy doing this. Sometimes Zoom can be really challenging, but we really appreciate the time that you took. It's been really fun for us to be able to just impart our passion behind your next experience. It's exciting.
Awesome. So I will send you guys the link to the video with their contact info, and feel free to reach out to them. I'm sure would even have a short conversation just to, with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a quick 15 to 30-minute conversation with any potential student, just to kind of go over things. So for sure, contact us. I did put our email in there. It's reach@RowersREACH.com. So you can find us there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much, Holly. Have a great night, everybody.